One question I get from customers, especially new customers, is how accurate are airsoft guns? And my usual reply is, number one, I ask, are you used to shooting actual firearms? Because if that's the case, then you're probably going to have to temper your expectations as to how accurate airsoft guns are. When you consider that you're shooting a hard plastic BB through an unrifled barrel, your accuracy is not going to be all that great, considering this is really just a high-end spitwad shooter. But on the other hand, realizing the limitations, I think the guns are accurate enough for the job. There have been people that have bought airsoft guns from us and brought them back promptly and said, this thing can't hit anything. This is terribly inaccurate. And we'd go and test the guns, and they were shooting for what we would expect to be reasonable, which would be, you know, like a 6-inch group at 50 feet. But obviously those people have experience with actual firearms, and they weren't aware of the limitations of airsoft guns. So it's important to have that in mind when you're doing this kind of sport. When I first started this latest series of videos that I'm working on, my intention was to try to find out how can we make an airsoft gun more accurate. So we're looking at different variables, whether it's BB weight, velocity, length of barrel, and so on, to try to see if there's a combination that's going to reliably give you better accuracy. Coming from a world of firearms and migrating into airsoft, I have to say that getting real guns to shoot accurately is way easier than getting an airsoft gun to shoot accurately, because there are just so many more variables with airsoft guns, whether it's the bucking type or the bucking shape or the hop up or the barrel length or the barrel diameter or what you're using to propel the BB. There's just a huge number of variables that you have to take into account, where when you're dealing with firearms, you could say you have an AR-15 with a certain barrel twist rate, a certain weight of the bullet, and a certain velocity that you're shooting at. You can fairly reliably get certain results that you can reproduce. But in the airsoft world, that is almost next to impossible. But with that in mind, today's video, we're looking at the length of the barrel to try to see if there is a preferable barrel length to get us better accuracy. So to start off, we're using 3 barrel lengths. We're doing a 310, a 410, and a 510 millimeter barrel. These are all 6.03 tight bore barrels, and we're using the ProWin hop-up with Maple Leaf MR hop-up buckings. So those are the variables that we're using in this particular test. The gun that we're using is a Polar Star Fusion. It's the original Fusion engine. We are keeping the velocity of the BB to 380 feet per second. So regardless of the length of the barrel, the velocity will be the same. So we're looking at all things being equal. 3 of the same manufacturer barrels, hop-ups, buckings, BBs, and gun. And the only variable is the length of the barrel. Does it make a difference? So our first group of shots, we shot at 50 feet. The gun was set in a bench vise, so there was absolutely no movement on the part of the gun. And we shot strings of 10 shots into a couple of targets, and then took the average of those groupings to come up with what our results were. When we first shot the 310 millimeter barrel, the shorter of the barrels, we got a 2.5-inch group at 50 feet, which is not terribly bad. When we shot the 410 millimeter barrel, we got a 2.25-inch group, which was a little bit better. The surprise came when we shot the 510 millimeter barrel and got a 3-inch group. So the group size actually got bigger, which was surprising to me. I would think with the longer barrel we would get better accuracy, but it did not actually work out that way, at least not automatically. So it got my brain to working as to exactly what are the other variables going on that would cause a longer barrel to not have the same kind of accuracy as the shorter barrel. So there are other things that you're looking at, such as the resistance of the barrel. There are also the bore of the barrel and the setting of the hop-up. And try as you might, adjusting hop-ups is probably one of the more frustrating things that I've had to do with an airsoft gun, because it's not really a scientific process. You're constantly tweaking it. You shoot a group of shots, you tweak it again, you try to get it so that it's got the flattest trajectory possible. But the thing is that I have a theory that the hop-up adds a certain level of randomness to it, where you might get flatter shots in general, but you get more random, like weird shots that are just way out of the group. And I don't know if that's the bucking or if that's the hop-up itself, the amount of friction that it's applying to the BB, but for whatever reason, those differences seem to manifest more in the longer barrels. So considering the results I got at the 50-foot range, when we moved up to the 100-foot range, I decided to change my criteria a little bit to give us a better idea of exactly what's going on with our accuracy. So the first group I decided to turn back the hop up a little bit and not have quite so much hop, so that there was still a pronounced arc to the BB. So the hop up was not affecting the flight of the BB quite as much. So with a minimal amount of hop up, the 310, or the shorter barrel, gave us a 7.5-inch group. The 410 millimeter barrel gave us a 7-inch group, and the 510 millimeter barrel gave us a 6.5-inch group. So it got progressively better. In fact, at the longer range, the longer barrel did give us better accuracy. And with all three of them, at least 80% of the shots were within a 6-inch diameter. So that was pretty consistent results that I found, because the first string of shots that I tried at 100 feet, I was getting these wildly varying results that just did not make any sense. And I pretty much have chalked that up to setting the hop up with too much hop, so that you're getting a flat trajectory, but it's still, you get these wild shots that come in from time to time. And that's the only explanation that I can come up with. And that's something that we're going to delve into in future videos. The question I had from there was, could I actually improve the accuracy by completely turning off the hop up altogether? So at 100 feet, the shortest barrel gave us a 10-inch group, which was actually worse than we got with the same barrel with a little bit of hop up. So when we completely turned the hop up off, we got a 10-inch group. When we had the hop up on, we got a 7.5-inch group. So it was more accurate with the hop up on. With the middle-sized barrel, the 410 millimeter barrel, the results were exactly the same. We got a 7-inch group in both settings, whether it was absolutely no hop up or a minimal amount of hop up. And when we went up to the biggest, longest barrel, the 510 millimeter barrel, the accuracy actually got better. It went up to went down, I should say, to a 6-inch group. So by using a longer barrel, now the way that I reconcile that is, now we're using more of the barrel to get the accuracy than we're using the hop up. So the barrel is giving us straighter shots at longer range. So we did actually get the best accuracy with the longest barrel with the least amount of hop up in it. And that's something you may want to try for yourselves. And I'd be curious to hear from some of you guys out there as to whether or not that sort of logic or that sort of physics works for you with your particular gun. We're going to delve into some other variables in future videos, so stay tuned. We're going to look into different hop-up types, whether we're going from a Pro Win to a different brand, because this whole thing got me thinking, and I went back to my standard G&G hop-up. We're using an MR bucking in a Pro Win hop-up, so this is kind of a highfalutin hop-up system. I went back to the plain old G&G stock hop-up, and believe it or not, I got even better results from that, so which was even more surprising. So that's got me thinking we're going to look into other hop-up types, we're going to look into other buckings, and we're going to try to see what is the best combination for better accuracy with airsoft guns. And hopefully this will give you something that you can reproduce at home, although best thing I can tell you is, if you're going to try to make your airsoft gun more accurate, you're going to have to do a lot of experimentation and it may differ from gun to gun because there's plenty of other variables in there. So stay tuned, and hopefully you'll catch some of our new videos. And until then, don't let the bastards get you down.